Speaking of dancing, though, they do that in the Billie Eilish bad guy thing. Let's talk about Fosse Verdon. Man, we haven't really talked about that show this much on here. Um, yeah, I think we talked about the
Just the premiere.
premiere. Yeah, just the premiere, and it wrapped up 2 weeks ago, last week. Sam Rockwell playing
last week,
playing Bob Fosse, Michelle Williams playing Gwen Verdon. I have a lot of thoughts on this show. I'm wondering, before I get into it, did you enjoy Fosse Verdon?
Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna be a bit of a broken record and say a lot of the stuff I said when we talked about it on the premiere. But having seen the full season, I did like it. I think there's just some undeniable things about this show that it's really hard to take away from the Enterprise, even if you have issues with some decision making or direction. The choreography, the period status of the story, the acting, the costumes, all of that is just undeniably great. Like, it's really hard to have a problem with that. It's very much, this is an FX show, and it feels like one in a great way. You have Aya Cash having this off the bench for that hospital scene, right? It's just really well constructed. The problem is, at least the problem with a lot of people, is that they just wish the story was told differently, given the nature of Bob Fosse as a human being.
Yeah.
But what we got, I think, is still just kind of hard to deny. And when they get away from the Fosse of it all, it's really awesome. So I still really enjoy the show, even if there's issues with it.
Yeah, and I agree. I think when they really lean into like the dance rehearsals, when they lean into him working, when they lean into the show tunes and all of the work he created, I think the show really thrives. I think the gimmicks to me didn't always work. Whether I thought him actually doing the stand up was effective in telling the story of like Bob's haunted past, but then there was I think it was maybe the last episode, second to last, where you had Gwen basically like playing her character from Chicago, but doing it in a way that was like basically like tying the story together from scene to scene. That kind of took me out of it at times. There are moments in this where I was kind of like, I don't know if these choices really made sense. Overall, I think the show is really well done, and you have two amazing actors giving two amazing performances, and that's, I think, undeniable. At times, like you kind of forget who you're watching, and it feels like you're actually watching like Fosse and Verdon. I don't know much about them actually like going at it. They had that much chemistry. But yeah, episode to episode, I felt like it was a little inconsistent too. I felt like the episode where they go to Bob's, like, I don't know, summer house or whatever it is there, that episode fell a little flat for me. But then the episode, I believe it was before it, where I think it was Bob was either like coming out of the hospital, or maybe it was 2 episodes before, where Bob was about to attempt suicide, then ends up in the hospital. I felt like that episode stands out as one of the strongest, when he has the whole like Pippin show singing to him about his final act. That's something I'm never going to forget from TV shows, which I think is a testament to the highs the show had and sometimes the lows as well.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is that it felt like every time we're seeing Gwen Verdon, it's to service the story of Fosse. And they do a good job, at least, of explaining, usually through those title cards that update you of like where we are in time. They clearly demonstrate that Fosse is much more successful than Gwen, and her career kind of stagnated or crested really early, whereas Bob was able to kind of milk his relationship with her to further his own career, but not actually her. So they communicate that well. The problem is, I wish they would have explored more of the Verdon side of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like I don't feel that they lionized Bob Fosse as a person. That was some initial criticism when we got the first wave of, reviews post, like, embargo, when the critics got the first wave of episodes. And he's clearly established as a creep in this. Like in episode 4, when he doesn't follow the nose and keeps making advances to one of his dancers, and then treats her like shit afterwards, and then she feels like she needs to ask him to go on a drink so she can do better in the production. And then even Gwen offhandedly will acknowledge that, uh, oh well, she's that dancer over there. She's so good, she doesn't have to go to your hotel room. Like it's just so matter of fact, right? But I
Mhm.
never felt like it was lionizing or condoning it. And you know, having a story of being having a story involving a shitty dude in the time of Me Too, I think is okay. It just would have been. I feel like it probably would have landed better for most people if we got more of the Verdon side, and it was Fosse Verdon, not Fosse and sometimes Verdon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the lionizing, the part I had the most problem with was actually the end, because so when Bob dies, and spoiler alert, Bob Fosse's dead.
So real. Go read Wikipedia.
Yeah, when he dies, and they like flash all the moments between him and Gwen, like he's like laying there thinking about how Gwen is like the love of his life, and even the beginning of the episode when he's talking with Patty on the bench, and he's like, how the Bob Fosse movie would end with, the third act would be him realizing he's supposed to be with Gwen, and it's Gwen all along, blah blah. I feel like that gets played up a little bit because if you do read Bob Fosse's autobiography or his Wikipedia, he was living with Anne, who kind of gets phased out around episode 6 in this, up until he died, and then actually Gwen and Anne lived together after that. It, it almost the kind of retells the end of his life in a way to, I think, build that relationship. And I realize it's a TV show and they're going to take some liberties to drive that home. But I think they kind of glossed over, I think, just how shitty he was to Gwen specifically. But maybe, but I think maybe if they had given more time to Gwen, to your point, to kind of flesh out her full emotional experience, it might have hit home a little bit better. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's still very much a show that if you're a fan of TV and any of the aspects of TV making, especially in today's world, where this is a show that still definitely rises above the top. And again, in the age of 500 scripted shows a year, you have to make some concessions and let stuff that's just okay or just good go. But I think this show is clearly above that bar, despite what some of the discourse would lead you to believe. So I think it's still very much worth people's time. So I kind of wanted to. I mean, no one feels bad for Rockwell or Michelle Williams. They've both recently won awards, and Rockwell really is having a great run of playing dicks. But I mean, also like this is produced by what? The Americans dude, Lin-Manuel. There's a lot of star power involved in this show, so no one's gonna cry over any spilled milk here. But I do hope it gets more of a look than it feels like it got.
Yeah, and shout out Lin-Manuel playing Roy Scheider in that last episode. Great cameo. Enjoyed that.